If you're using some of the more advanced features within Claude Code, then you're probably using loops and batches and maybe background agents to do things asynchronously. Now, what if you could use an orchestrator that talked to multiple agents and they all worked as a little bit of a swarm? In this video, what we're going to do is explore team agents within inside of Claude Code using tmux. Now, if I just drop down to a window, what you can see is that I have an orchestration system that I've done here, and we've got a bunch of tmux terminals, each with different sub-agents that are talking back to the primary. Now, all of these agents that you can see here and their gate rules are all part of a workflow that I do using the BMAD method. So in this video, we're going to start a new workflow from scratch and just see how you can use an agent team and an orchestrator system. I'm Happy Dave. Let's get into it. So let's get started by going down to the terminal, and what I've got is an export of the experimental flag called agent teams that will allow us to use this new team mode. Now, to use it as a team of agents in different terminals, we're going to use a terminal multiplexer or tmux, and I'm going to use the one on iTerm with the -cc. This is going to give me capabilities of using the mouse to resize windows. We can then just cd into our project directory, run Claude, and we're doing it with dangerous skip permissions and also this teammate mode and tmux. And this will give us the ability to start our orchestrator. Once we're happy with the code and the code quality, what we'll do is we'll go over to Taylor. He does story acceptance tests. So the first Taylor will create the plan of action. The second Taylor will go and run it, and he will run both automations in the form of E2E tests, but he'll also open up Playwright and act as a user and just see if the application is working. Now, if there are any issues, he too will loop back to Amelia to get the job done and potentially forward through to Nate before finally running the tests again. Once this is all done, we need to document any learnings that we got from any of the agents, and we do that with our librarian, Lisa, and she'll update our knowledge-driven development documents. And these documents are used by all agents moving forward to take any learnings and patterns to improve our code quality on each iteration of this particular loop. Now, mostly we're just running a bunch of commands like you see here, but there will be early in the piece just the idea of creating our team as well. So that's the basic workflow we're going to go through. Let's get over into a fresh terminal and see how we put it together. So we get started by going over to our terminal. I'm on iTerm2 and I'm going to run tmux with the -cc command. And what that's going to do is open up a blank window. Now the original is still sitting here. We can't close it down. We need to leave it open while this other one is running. Now I normally run Claude with dangerously skip permissions, but today what we're going to do is put on the teammate mode and tmux. We'll kick it off. And then I'm going to run a command that I've got called bmad story lifecycle. And this is going to run a bunch of regular bmad sort of setup. We're going to look at the statuses, what project or story we're on at the moment. But more importantly, it's loading up all the rules that I want for my orchestrator. Now it's come up with 3 different areas we could work on. There's a couple of maintenance stories, but we're just going to go into an Epic 6 story 8. And while we don't need it now, we've got a little bit of instruction on how to get started, but otherwise we're seeing information around what this orchestrator will do from a rules engine. And so we're going to be conversing here, but other windows will show up on the right, and they'll work based on these sorts of rules. Now we've got our first command that we want to run, and it's just that we should start up a team create. And with the team creation coming in, we'll see our new agent start. This is Bob the Scrum Master, and we can see a little Bob CS down in the corner of the screen, and the skill involved with this particular agent and the action that he's taken is loading at the moment. He's going to create a story. Now there's two-way communication going on, so we can also see that the orchestrator has visibility of what's going on. The main details going on here are not available until they're sent back. So the main work that Bob has done so far is that he's read the story. We've got other documents that he's reading, including the knowledge-driven development area, and he's doing a lot of that in background agents. So while Bob is doing his work, we can come back and have a look at the orchestrator a little bit. So the area we're in is step 1A, it's the story creation. We can see that some of the story is being created, and it looks like we've just got a report being sent back. And that just means now that Bob, the validate story agent, is now about to kick off. If we look down in the right hand corner, we'll see a little green label for Bob validate story, and we can see that he's still the same agent as before. So the first Bob did the creation of the story, the second Bob is working through the validation, and our orchestrator is going to wait at the end of this process because we do need to validate, or we do need to make any decisions around any information that comes back from this version of Bob. Now it looks like some information is coming through. We've got 3 critical issues that we need to make a decision about. So I'm just going to ask the question of whether my orchestrator agrees. Now I've already loaded my orchestrator with other information about the project, so they can make an informed decision for me over whether we do all 3 or not. And I find this really useful because if someone has other information about the project that this validation agent doesn't know, sometimes some of these are not meant to be done. But in this case, it looks like we can apply all. And one of them is considered optional, but I'll let it through at the moment. And what we should do is, in this case, let our orchestrator just do the work. It's very simple. So we don't need to waste time loading up another agent for this when it can just be done right here. So the fixes have been applied. We can see them all listed here. It's saying that we can proceed to Amelia. So we'll do that, and a new terminal window will open for us. At the moment, the team lead is the communication channel. So we're implementing the BMAD dev. This is the agent that's named Amelia. So the skill is loading in at the moment. We're reading in other files. Amelia has received the argument to do a develop story on 6.8. So going straight into the skill from BMAD for dev story. Now I've expanded the window so that you can see a little bit more information. Because I'm using iTerm with tmarks, I can do this. If I was using Ghosty, I wouldn't have this capability, and that's one of the limitations you might see with other sorts of systems. I like that I can just click between the different terminals as well. Really easy, and it allows me to just have conversations on either side of the fence. If you do know how to use tmarks over in Ghosty and be able to click through and resize really easily, then drop a comment down below and I'll just mention it in a future video. Now Amelia at the end of her coding session has done some unit tests, and now what she's doing is popping up a Playwright MCP server just to check that things are working okay. She's gone over to the dashboard, she's just looking for information. And these 2 areas, the unit tests and the Playwright, are just some basic validation that she does before handing over to Nate. So Amelia has just written up a report. What we should do is start to see some activity with the orchestrator, and something is coming through. It said that Amelia is complete, ready for review, and our orchestrator has just kicked off something. We got Nate running story 6.8, and we should see him over here. We can always see the name of each of our agents and also the actions. So at the moment it's just Nate and Amelia on the right, but we got Bob for create story and we got Bob for validate story, and our BMAD delivery review has kicked in. Now what he does by default is run a pre-flight check, so that number is matching the number we had from Amelia up above, and then there's going to be 6 different background agents that run. We got the blind hunter and the edge case hunter. We also have software development code quality, architecture quality, and test coverage. And the idea of the test coverage is that it's looking for coverage of tests across the system, but also make sure that there's not flaky or useless testing going on in the system. So there's our 6 agents in the background running. We'll let them go. Now it looks like there's a nudge from the team leader. So he just sends a message every now and then saying, can you send your report? Because we don't currently have good understanding of whether because there's currently not asynchronous communication going on where they can just talk with this particular setup. Now the reason this came up is to do with the way I've configured it. So I've got an agent idle rule for my orchestrator. So there's a one nudge message sent after a little while if it notices that the agent is idle. And instructions like this get put in automatically for me because I've got my Overwatch or the orchestrator just checking these workflows. If anything just seems to fail, and I've had it happen where agents have run off when they shouldn't have, multiple agents doing the same thing. So I'm constantly getting my orchestrator to have a look at this conversation. And if there's a challenge at the end, update it. And in the past, that's helped me build up the gate rules, such as that Nate is not meant to move on to Taylor until I've had a look at what's going on. At the moment, we've got a triage summary coming through. So hopefully we're going to see a response from Nate. Nate is happy with everything. One of the interesting ones is that we've got a deduplication needed. So there's either going to be a learning or a new maintenance story that we need to develop. And it looks like we've just got a pass from Nate coming through. So the orchestrator is now analyzing what's coming back and automatically kicking off Taylor, which is a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to kick off this question. I want to understand why Taylor ran automatically. I'm okay with it because everything that Nate did was okay. So Taylor is the story acceptance test agent. They're loaded at the moment. And what they're going to do is create a UAT plan. And it looks like it did everything as expected. Because it was a pass, it's just allowed to go on automatically. I wasn't sure whether that rule had been put in place. So I'm happy with the way this is working. So we're just getting a completion report back. We've got 21 test case going on. We're kicking off now the running of the tests with a different version of Taylor. So these are the different tests that are going to be done. Some of them are just unit tests, and we're also going to have automation tests in the form of E2E plus automation tests in the form of Playwright. So here's our Playwright kicking off. It's going to get on to the local host. It's going to try and do a login. We're also got some just checks directly against the database. In this case, it's using an MCP to talk to the Superbase database, just to check that the correct data for this story is in place. And now we've got another Playwright action kicking in. It's gone to the login page again, currently pre-filling the email and the password for me and taking us over to the dashboard. And it's just taking some screenshots along the way, just analyzing the data to make sure it matches what the story is meant to have. And we can see that there's a pass for this page. And this is pretty much the same pass we had when Amelia was running. But it's also closing the loop by checking the data that it sees here through to the MCP talking directly to the database. Now he's finished his work, so what he's doing is sending back a report to the team lead. And here it comes through right now. It's a full pass, which means we can go straight on to the next agent, which is Lisa, my librarian, and she's doing the knowledge-driven development. Lisa is going to review everything from the story, and now each of the agents. So when Bob created the story, he left a section for Lisa, and any of these agents, here's the digital twin of Bob who did the validation. If he had a problem, he can leave a message for Lisa. Then when we get into the software development, if there's any coding issues or if there's any quality control issues, they can be left for Lisa to analyze. And then when Taylor is running the unit tests, the same thing happens. So what happens with learnings is that they're recorded. Now, if we get 3 or 4 of them across multiple stories, they're promoted to becoming a planning instead. They're promoted to becoming a pattern instead. So Lisa is just looking at the different candidates for the KDD knowledge base. You can see that she can see recurrences in different stories, so she knows where to go back and look for patterns. So she's completed her work. She's about to send the report back to the orchestrator, and that's coming in as a pass. What we should expect to see next is that a shipping or a commit and push happens, and that'll do it using the bmad ship action that I've got, which is designed to not only push, but wait for the continuous integration system to come back with a pass or a fail. Now, if there are any fails, the orchestrator will try to fix it, but at the same time, note it down for Lisa in the next story. Now, Lisa has come back with a summary of the curation or the knowledge that she's done, we're going to kick off a BMAD ship. And we did that manually, but we're also going to ask her to promote some of these learnings up to patterns. So we've got a second version of Lisa running at the moment. She's just doing the promotion of these documents. And Lisa has done her work and we've kicked off our shipping. So that brings us to the end of using the agent teams to run through an automated workflow, but we've got a lot of orchestration and the ability to communicate with our different agents, make different decisions along the way. Anyway, I'm Happy Dave. If you want to work with me, you can, through my website, contact me directly. Otherwise, check out the link in the description. That'll take you to my school community where I'm talking about BMAD, agentic operating systems, and using Claude code. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.